So Frank took the time to write out his questions pretty thoroughly and explained everything really well. So kind of what Frank is wanting to do is kind of the key of this is he's using the anaADXVMA, which has a data series or an int series output, and really kind of the key of what he's wanting to learn how to do is check when you get two bars of a certain sequence, two bars with certain values coming out of this. Let me highlight that here on the chart to give you an example. So, all right. So, for example, right here we got two candles in a row. Actually, no. Sorry. Well, actually, yeah. This is one example. So, if we get two candles in a row where the close is less than the open, in other words, if we get two down bars, for example, and kind of here's the other key thing that's a little unique to this. So if we get two int series, in other words, if we get two bars with this int series, and I'll show you what this int series is inside of the indicator. So some indicators, like some of ANA's indicators, have an int series which actually gets converted to a data series in BloodHound. So if we get two of these int series values, in other words, two bars where the value equals 0 in a row. So really, that's kind of what it comes down to is, how do you link up multiple bars, two bars, how do you look for two bars in a row with different types of values here? And let's see. Let me just check. Okay, yeah, word wrap is on. Good. And there's a bunch of different conditions here for the exit signals here. So this could be another good demonstration of building multiple exit signals and stuff like that. So let's get on to building this system here. All right. So we have two entry rules here. All right, so when we get a +1, so this +1 and -1, this is coming from the anaADX indicator, and I'll show you that here in a moment. So, all right, so I already have the chart ready, and I have the anaADX on my chart, and Frank wanted to use the Uniraco, the Uniraco bar type there, so I have the Uniraco on here. So that's all there is. It's just the ANA indicator. There's nothing else, no other indicators used in the system. So it's going to be pretty straightforward. All right, so let me open up BloodHound here, and let me put a name in here. And so, yeah, today is the 17th. There we go. And just another note, if you don't have this ANA indicator, you can download this from Big Mike's. So all the ANA indicators are up on Big Mike's somewhere, up on Big Mike's. Or, actually, let's see. Actually, no, you know what? I just learned from Daniel that actually the anaADX isn't packaged by itself. It's actually a moving average that's packaged inside of a couple of the other ANA indicators. So this ADXVMA is packaged inside the ANA Super Trend. So if you've downloaded the ANA Super Trend, then you already have the anaADXVMA. But I did ask Daniel Rowe to package the anaADXVMA separately on his site. So I believe he's done that already. So for anybody new, these anaADXVMA, a lot of these, I think all these indicators can be downloaded can be downloaded from Daniel's site. So, and I had mentioned previously that Daniel had a zip file installer that included all the indicators, but I found out that for some reason Fat Tails didn't like that and is not allowing Daniel to host that single file with all the anaindicators in it. So you're going to have to download all the anaindicators separately from Daniel's website. Let's see, let me pull that up here. So when I say Daniel's website, what I am referring to is, let's see if I have it on here, my shortcuts. No, doesn't look like it. Alright, so Daniel's website is trade-the-plan.com, and somewhere in the free downloads you can find those ANA indicators. There you go, Ninja Trader indicators. So if you can't find anything that you're looking for, you can just send Daniel a quick question asking him where you can find those ANA indicators. So alright, you may need to create a membership in order to log in to get those indicators. I'm not sure, but so alright, so that's where you can get this anaADXVMA indicators. Either you can download the ANA Super Trend, and that includes the ADXVMA, and there's another couple of other ANA indicators that include this ANA ADXVMA moving average. So alright, so I'm going to start off by creating a entry logic template here. So let me move this over here, right? So when we get a +1 from the ANA's data series, we're going to get a long trade here. So when we're accessing a data series or an int series, typically you're going to want to use the threshold solver here. And as I work through this, it'll become apparent why you want to use the threshold solver. Alright, so I have this plugged in. Let's see, let me give this a name. So, alright, so give it some kind of name, so that we switch the indicator over now. And there it is. Alright, I'm just going to use the default period settings. Let's see, none of this other stuff really affects the ANA indicator as far as I know. This is just all visual stuff, I believe. Okay, so here's what's unique about the ANA indicators. It has this data series called a trend, right? So this data series is basically, think of it like a hidden plot, right? So this data series, and this data series could also be an int series, is listed here. It could also be what's called a bool series. But a data series is, it's like a plot, but it's not seen on the chart. So it's basically, it's like plot information, but it can only be passed kind of like behind the scenes from one indicator to another indicator, or from an indicator to a strategy, right? So it's plot information that's not seen on the chart. And so that's what we're going to use here, is we're going to use this data series. And typically, if you see a data series called trend or something like signal, any of those two keywords, then usually what that means is that this data series, it's going to have a value of +1 or a value of -1 or 0, right? So in the case of this indicator, and I just know this just from my experience, but you might have to actually ask the programmer, what's coming out of that data series sometimes. So if you have a custom, a custom indicator like this, and you're not sure, what's inside this data series, then you might need to send the programmer a quick email asking him, what values are set inside of this trend data series. But I know from experience that on the ANA indicator, right, when it is red, when it's sloping down and it's red like this, then this data series trend contains a -1, right? So this downtrend contains a -1, right? So it contains a -1 here. So we're going to use this -1 to actually take a long trade. And then when the indicator is blue, so we can see over here on the right side of the chart, the indicator turned up and it turned blue. So when this indicator turns blue, this trend contains a +1, right? It actually contains a +1. And then when the indicator is yellow, right? So when this moving average is kind of flat and yellow, that means it contains a 0. So 0 for, 0 meaning no trend, right? So there's no trend. And a +1 means we're in an uptrend when it's blue, and a -1 means it's in a downtrend. Right, so that's quite often what these data series contain, is a +1, meaning that there's a kind of a long signal or a long condition, or it'll contain 0 for neutral, nothing's happening, or it'll typically contain -1 for meaning there's a down situation, a down condition. So now what we can do is we're going to test that theory out. So I'm going to show you how to test that idea out. So let's just kind of, for a moment, pretend like we don't know what this data series contains. So if you don't know what this data series contains, we can do some simple testing to figure out how to use it here. So what you can do is you can start off by going, putting a 1 in there, a +1, and in E we can put a -1, like so. Right, and so +1 typically means that we're in a long kind of condition. So for a long output, right, let's set this to 1, so that way we get a long output if that trend data series is greater than 1. And just, right, so there we go. Whenever there's a blue plot up, that data series, that trend data series, was set to +1, like so. And so we're going to be pretty certain now that the short out, or that when the indicator's red and pointing down, that it's most likely going to contain a -1. And so with the short output down here where it says less than -1, we can set the output to a 1. And there we go. So now we can see whenever the indicator's red, right, that let me scoot this over. Alright, so we can see here, so this data series trend, whenever it contains a +1, we set it up to get a long output, like so. Now if you don't get anything when you're doing some testing, you might want to try testing some other numbers here. Sometimes you might want to put 0.1, something like that, because you never really know what the programmer, what values the programmer set in that indicator. So you might want to try other values as well in here and see what you get. So but the ANA indicators, I think Fat-Tails is typically using 1 and -1. All right, but let's see. The rules here say that actually a -1, we want a long trade. So we need to get a long signal out of here. So I need to turn my short output off, and we're going to set this to set the long output so that when we get a -1, we're going to get a long signal there as well. So, all right. So there's our entries. You know, the long signals when the indicator is going down seems a little backwards, but it is what it is. Okay. And let's see. So we have a third rule here. So only one entry signal can be produced without having an intervening exit signal. All right, so that's a little more complex. We'll have to come back to this later here. So we actually need to build the exit. We have to build, we have to build the exit signals first before we can actually implement this restriction on the entry signals. So I'll go down here and we'll start. I'll start building the exits here. All right, so this is how we're going to exit long trades here. All right, so we're going to be looking for a candle or a bar where the close is down, so we're looking for a down bar. So basically, if the close is less than the open, right, that's going to be a down bar on our chart. All right, so the close less than the open is a down bar, and then followed by a int series value of 0. So in other words, if we get a down bar and then where the indicator turns yellow or goes flat, and we get this 0, basically we get a 0 in that DataSeries trend. So here's kind of the key. Let me so when Frank is talking about this int series and getting a value of 0, what he's talking about is that this DataSeries trend, if this trend equals a 0, right, that's what he's talking about. So we're going to look for a down bar, and then we want this trend DataSeries to equal 0, and then that would be an exit signal. So let's see, let me move this over here. So I'm going to start a new logic template, and for our exits. Let's see. All right, so I need to, well, actually the first rule is to find a down bar. So that's just simply the bar direction solver. All right, simple enough. So let me kind of set some ground rules here. So remember, we're building exit signals for a long trade, right? So if let's disconnect that. So if we have a long trade here, say we have a long trade over here, we're long. What we want to build is a short signal to exit that long, right? So a short output will exit the long. So we can see that down bars provide us a short output, right? A down bar provides us a short output. So that's good. That's exactly what we want. And so now the next thing is when that DataSeries trend contains a value of 0, we also want a short output as well. So that way we get a short output from the down bar and a short output when this trend data series from the ADXVMA, when it equals 0, we want a short output as well. And so those two short outputs will create a final short output to exit or close out a long trade. So let's build another threshold solver here. So, alright, so the name I use is when the ADXVMA equals 0, we want to exit a buy. It's going to be a buy exit. So, yeah. There we go. Alright, so let's switch this over to the anaADXVMA. And once again, we're looking at this trend series to see if it contains a 0. Alright. And so, remember, we want a short output when it equals 0 here. So let's just put a 1 in there. And let's see, it's not quite what we want. Interesting, we're getting a short output when it's in an uptrend. So, okay, let's put a 1 in there, and we'll put a -1 in here, create some thresholds, and set that to 0. And there we go. Alright, so whenever the ADX is yellow, right, that trend contains a 0 value, and now we have a short output for that to help us exit a long trade. Okay, so now, so let's find a particular place. So, alright, so here, these two bars right here. Let's see, let me, yeah, so we have a, so I can tell by looking at the indicator, right, it's red, so that means we're going to get, well, let's see, actually, no, that's not a right, that's not a correct spot here. Alright. So I'm looking for a down bar followed by a yellow plot. Yeah, alright, I think this is a spot right here. Alright, so I have a down bar here. Alright, so here's my down bar right there. And then I have a yellow plot on the indicator, so that DataSeries Trend should equal 0 right there. Right, so I can see right here I'm getting a short output because this is a down bar. And now let's take a look at the anaADX. And oh no, actually this is not yellow yet. It's okay, so it's over here. Alright, let me keep looking. Ah, here we go. I found a little spot. Alright, so what I'm trying to get across to you guys is that it's always good to find a spot on your chart that matches, you know, the condition that you're building in BloodHound. So, right, so I found a down bar here. So let me test the bar direction. Right, all right, so the bar direction confirms that this is a down bar because I get a short output. And let me plug in the anaADX. And that confirms that, right, we have a yellow plot here, right? We're getting the short output when the data series trend is 0, or also when the plot is yellow. All right, so now I need to just link those two together here. And so what I need to do is, right, I need to take this bar direction that's giving me a short output over here, but I need to shift it over one bar. I need to shift it over onto the same bar that has the data trend equals 0, right? That has the yellow plot here, right? So I need to take this short and shift it over here. So let's see, and so putting in start bars a go, setting that to 1. Essentially, it's just kind of the same thing as using the displacement feature, and we can see now that it's shifted the short output over 1, like so. So that's going to put, so now we have a short on both of these bars, like so. Right? Now the next step is, now that I have both of those signals on the same bar, I need to join them together with an AND node. And there we go. So there's those exit signals. So yeah, we got quite a few places here where these exits actually qualify. All right. So that is number 1 for the exits. So let's see. All right, so I can put a little name in this AND node to tell me what this AND node is doing. So next, let's work on number 2. So we want 2 candles in a row where we have a down bar. So if the close is less than the open, basically that's 2 down bars in a row. That would also be an exit. So we can use the bar direction solver for that. So the number of bars, we want 2 bars in a row, and I'm going to change the mode from percent to all or nothing. You can see it gives us a cleaner outlook here on BloodHound. If you set it to percent, then basically it kind of shows a percentage of the number of down bars out of 2 that we got. So you can see it has this fuzzy logic output. This is a lot cleaner to see when it gives you kind of a digital output here. So, all right, just a sec. All right, so we're looking for 2 bars in a row of in the same direction. So we can see on the chart here, over here, right, we got 2 down bars, like so. And of course, over here we got 2 down bars, and we kept getting some more down bars. All right, so that is essentially number 2. So I can just put number 2 in there. So I'm going to take exit condition number 1 and exit condition number 2, join them together. All right. So, all right, so there's 2 exit conditions joined together. So let's work on number 3 here. All right, so here's another exit condition. So if our DataSeries Trend contains a 0, and the next bar is an up bar. Let's see. Actually, no. The next candle closes less than open. Okay, so it's a down bar. All right. So that would be right over here. Yeah. So I think that would be this right here. So we have a yellow plot. So that means our DataSeries Trend is going to contain 0. And then the next bar is a down bar, like so. All right. Let's see. So I need to take this trend data series when it's 0, and I need to shift it forward onto the next bar to see that if the next bar is a down bar. Right. So let's see. I've already got this solver built. So what I can do is now I can use a function node here, and I'm going to use the lookback function node. Right. So look. So here's the first bar where the data series trend, or the plot, is yellow. So here's our first bar, and I need to shift that forward onto the next bar. That could be a down bar. And the reason why I need to do that is because, who knows, the anaADX could have turned down and went red. So I do need to take, the condition on this bar and shift it forward. So I'm going to use the lookback node to do that. Plug that in. And its default settings are already set up to take the information from one bar and shift it forward on to the next bar. So we can see, there we go. So now we can see that the short signals start on this bar now. And if I keep going forward, let's take a look. Yeah, so we can see that we have a short output after the indicator turned down. Right, so if I take a look at the solver here, right, so you can see now there's no short output, but the lookback node took these short outputs and shifted them all forward one bar. And so now we have this short output here. Alright, so let's get back to where we're working right here. Alright. So, okay, I've gotten the data series trend, in other words, the yellow color. I've got that shifted forward. So now I just need to look at the bar direction. And let's see, I can't use this one because it's shifting the bar direction forward one bar. So I'm actually going to need a new one here. So there's a new bar direction. Take a look at that. And, oh, no, I grabbed the bar length. Sorry. Hold on, let me delete that bar length. Okay, I want a bar direction. There we go. Okay, so my bar direction shows me that this is a down bar, and so now I need to join these two conditions together with an AND node. Okay, and there is my short output to exit, right, to exit a long trade. So let me name this So this is number 3, rule number 3. I'll plug that in there into the OR node. So now I have now I have 3 exit rules. There we go. And looks like I have some exit rules. So you can see the long output here. So those are going to be exit rules when you're in a short trade. So, let's see. Yeah, so to exit a short trade, oh, sorry guys. Let me turn that off. There. All right. Okay, boy, I'm going to have to build these pretty quick. I'm quickly running out of time here. All right, so let me build rule number 4. So we're looking for 2 int series values equals 0 in a row. In other words, so remember, the int series here is the DataSeries Trend. So we're looking for 2 zeros in a row, which means we're looking for two of the yellow plots in a row as an exit as well. All right, so okay, so if we're looking for 2 in a row, so we've already got, you know, the solver built that identifies when the indicator is yellow, or what, in other words, when the trend is flat, really, when there is no trend. So now we just need to look for 2 in a row. And let's see if I can find a spot here on the chart where there's only 1 bar. That's 2. Oh, here we go. So we can see that I've got 1 bar where the trend went yellow or flat, and I'm getting a short signal here, but we don't actually want that, you know, to exit. Right, we need 2 in a row. So I can use the look back. Once again, I'm going to use the look back now for a different purpose. I'm going to use the look back to identify when there's 2 in a row. So I don't want to displace it, so I'm going to set the displace to 0, set the look back to 2. And in this case, let's see, the mode, I'm going to use minimum. So when you're looking for 2 of the same conditions in a row, you actually want to use the minimum. It sounds a little backwards, but mathematically that's how it works out. So we're going to use the minimum here. And so now, all right, so we're looking at this look back node. It's looking for 2 yellow bars in a row. And so we can see the short output disappeared. And now, right, if we can look over here, so the first yellow plot, the first bar with yellow, doesn't show up as an exit anymore, but the second one does because we got 2 in a row. Right, you can see that everywhere. So even over here, right, we got 1 bar with the yellow, and the second one actually gives us the short signal there. And we did actually get 2 yellow plots in a row there, so we did actually get an exit there. All right, so this is, let's see, rule number 4. So I can rename this. This is number 4. Yeah, I'll just call it number 4. All right, number 5. Okay, that's actually a setting for Raven. So if you want a 10-tick stop loss, that's going to be a setting in Raven here. So if I pull up my strategies and go to Raven, so you're just going to want to use a stop loss of 10, and it says ticks, and we can see the measurement unit is, it defaults to ticks. So that's how we do number 5. And let's see, a profit target of 15 ticks. So you just put 15 in there, like so. All right, that's how you set up Raven. But let's see, let's just close that. All right, so as far as the BloodHound logic goes, we got those guys. Okay, so now we need to build the reverse for a short trade. So since we are building short trade exits, I take it this is probably a typo here. So let me change the entries here. So I'm going to go over here, and we're going to modify the entries. So this is the the entry logic. So instead of getting a long output when we're at a -1 for the trend, I'm going to set it like this. Right, so there's our entry signals, and so that makes a little more sense, right? And let's see, I'm going to clean these up here. So you notice how, right, whenever the anaADX is down, is red, we're getting all these, short entry signals here. So usually you're going to want to clean those up. Maybe not, but typically you'll probably want to clean those up, because what would happen is when price is going down, so it enters you short, you get your 15 tick profit target, and then it's going to enter you short again in the same direction if you have multiple entry signals like this. So I'm going to use the signal blocker. So the signal blocker is designed to clean this up. And yeah, so that's really all I needed to do, is just set the block signals for 50 bars. So we're blocking the signals for 50 bars, and we can see it kind of cleaned it up there. So, hi everybody. This is being recorded after the workshop has ended. So I just want to record this second half to just to finish this off. So in the workshop, I left off with adding the signal blocker to the entries here. So it kind of cleaned up these signals here. So the next step is to finish off the exit signals. So I had built the exit signals for long trades. So I need to do a little more work so that we have exit signals for short trades. And essentially what we need to just do is just reverse our 4 exit requirements, or 4 exit conditions. So let's switch over to the exits here and finish that off. All right, so I've renamed some of these solvers, yeah, so I've renamed some of these solvers here. So this is exit rule number 1. So it's no longer going to be just a long exit anymore. So I've renamed it already, and we have exit number 2, right, which is this rule here. And then we have exit number 3, right, which will be this rule here. And then exit number 4 is down here. It uses this look back node here to create exit number 4, as I explained previously when I built these exits. So if we look at exit rule number 1, right, we can see that there's only short and short output. So right now, it's only going to exit long trades, right? So this doesn't have the exit rules for a short trade. So if we're in a short trade, so let's just say we're in a short trade here, we actually need a long output, right? We need a green long output to exit this short trade. So right now the bar direction, if we plug this guy in, we can see the bar direction is giving us both long and short outputs. So this is working in both directions. But if we take a look at this solver here, the solver that's looking at the anaADXVMA to generate some exit signals, right, we can see that whenever the indicator turns yellow, right, in other words, we're in a flat state, there is no trend, it's only giving us a long output. So if we want to use this flat trend state to also exit short trades, so if we want to exit short trades using this flat state, we also need a long output as well. So we need a green output as well. So simply all I need to do, right, is we can see that I have a short output at 0. So let me just kind of recap this. So we're looking at the anaADXVMA, and we're looking at the trend, right? We're looking at this DataSeries Trend state. And whenever that trend state equals 0, right? So it says at 0. So whenever that trend state equals 0, we're getting a short output. Well, we also want a long output so that we can exit short trades or a short position. So I'm going to put a 1 there. And so there, now we can see we're getting a long and a short output. So this flat state, right, so when the indicator is yellow, this flat state can now be used to exit either a long trade and a short trade, either one. All right, so now let's take a look at our AND node. So now if we take a look at our AND node, we can see we're getting long and short outputs here. So that means it's going to exit. So let's see, let me put a little dot here. So, right, this first long output, right, the green output, that would exit a short trade. So if we were in a short trade, then it would get exited by this bar, right? So if we take a look at that, right, so this is rule number 1. So let's pull up rule number 1. So this is the description to exit a long trade. So we're going to have to kind of reverse the rules here. So first we're looking for a candle where the close is less than the open, right? So this is a down bar. So to exit a long trade, we're looking for a down bar. So if we're going to exit a short trade, we'd actually be looking for an up bar. And I can see that we do actually have an up bar right there. Stretch this up. So there's our first up bar. And then we want it to be, and then if it's followed by, right, a data series with a value of 0, right, which is the yellow plot line, right? So when it's followed by a data series that has 0 of this yellow, then that qualifies, that would exit a short trade, right? So if we reverse this for an up bar, then that is the exit condition for a short trade. And let's see what else. Yeah, here's another one. So rule number 4. So if we get 2 data series where the value equals 0 in a row, right? So we can see that we have multiple bars where the plot is yellow. So we definitely have a lot of them are 2 in a row. So let's take a look at rule number 4 down here. So if we plug that in, right? So now whenever we get 2 bars that have a yellow plot, we can see we're getting a long output. So these long outputs would exit a short trade. And of course the short output would exit a long trade. Let's see, what other rules here uses that data series? Okay, rule number 3. So if we get a data series with the value of 0, and then the next candle, and we have to reverse this. So if the next candle is actually, we're going to reverse this for an up bar. So we reverse that to make our short trades here. So, as it explains here, we're going to take the close less than the open, and we're going to reverse it so that the close is greater than the open. In other words, this is going to be an up bar. So this is an up bar. So we just reverse the little greater than symbol. So what that means is if we get, let's see, yeah, so right here, there's our first bar where the data series value equals 0. And then the next candle would be an up bar. So remember, we have to reverse this. So if the next candle is an up bar, then we want a long output to exit a short trade. So let's take a look at rule number 3. Let's take a look at rule number 3 here. And there we go. So our first bar, right, the data series equals 0. And we can tell because, right, the plot is yellow. And then the next bar, the following bar, is an up bar. And so we get a long output here, which would, exit or close out a short trade. So, and then rule number 3, it uses the bar direction. It just looks for 2 bars in the same direction. So, right, so we can see we get 2 up bars in a row, 2 up bars in a row. So this long output is going to exit a short trade. So, all right, so essentially these are all ready now to exit a short trade and a long trade, either way. So I'll just set that up like that. All right, so all the exits are done now, right? And just to recap, all I needed to do was take this threshold solver, and I just had to add a 1 in the long output when it's 0. So at 0. All right, so what this means is when our data series trend equals 0, or it's at 0, we're going to get a long output and a short output. And that's all I had to do to make all these exit signals work for both long trades and short trades. All right, let's see what is next. So this next part is a little more complicated. Yeah. So I haven't done this entry signal condition yet. So number 3, right? So we're going back to our entry signals here and conditions. So we have a condition here. So actually, item number 3 is a condition, right? So we only want one entry signal to be produced. Let's see, without having an intervening exit signal. Yeah, so I think that we only want one entry until we have an exit signal. So what I need to do is I need to get this exit logic, I need to get this brought over to our entry signals. So that way I can use the exit logic to essentially block our entry signals. So we want an entry signal, and then an exit, and then another entry signal is allowed. So we don't want two entry signals in a row. We need an exit signal in between the entry signals. So let's take a look at our entry signals here, and let's see if we can yeah, so maybe, yeah, this might be a situation that violates that condition. So let me mark the two entries here, right? So we have an enter long and enter short. And let's take a look at the exits here. And now I can see here on this bar, stretch this out. So I do have an exit the long trade on this bar, right? So this short output here would exit this long trade before we actually get this short entry signal. All right, let me try and find another spot. All right, so there's my entries marked. So let me take a look at the exits and make sure there's an exit in between. And yes, there is. So we actually have an exit there. And there's an exit there, one bar prior to the entries. Okay, so let me keep looking. And oh, actually, you know what? I noticed I'm on the backtest Rankos. So let me switch back to the unit Rankos. Okay, I think the way I have these entry signals set up doesn't quite correlate with how condition 3 is written. So let me make some adjustments to the signal blocker here, right? So I'm looking at the entry logic here, and I have the signal blocker, right? So I have the signal blocker set up to, give me a really nice clean signals here. If we bypass the signal blocker, right, we can see that we have a lot of entry signals here. So, and all these other entry signals are actually getting bypassed, but those actually may be wanted, right? So if we're in a really long trend, you may want to take another long trade here. If your profit or stop's been hit, you may want to take another one. So let me make some adjustments to this to allow some more entry signals to happen. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so input no signal. So this input no signal, All right, when I turn that on, we can see we're getting a lot more entry signals here. So what's happening is, all right, so we're looking at the original signals here, right, being inputted into the signal blocker. And you see these bars here where there's no signal. So whenever there's an absence of a signal here, so for example right here, this bar here, we can see there's one bar with no entry signal. So this bar here with no entry signal is actually resetting the signal blocker, and it allows the second bar here, it allows the entry signal on this bar afterwards to show up. So let's take a look at that. Right? So there we go. We had this bar with no input signal, and that allowed the entry signal after it to show up. Once again, that's this setting. So input, no signal. So we can see right here, this bar had no signal. So this bar had no signal, and so it reset the signal blocker. Take a look at that again. All right, so let's look at the original signals. And right, once again, we have a bar with no signal, and that allows this next entry signal to show up. So take a look at that again. Okay, so we got a lot more. Oops, I accidentally had the signal blocker selected. Thought I had the chart selected. So let me build this signal blocker back again. There we go. All right, so we have multiple entry signals now. Okay, so now this is something that can be used, right, to build this condition number 3 for our entries. So we want to make sure that we don't have multiple entries unless an exit signal happens in between these entries here. So let's see, let's take a look at our exits again. And all right, I'm going to have to mark these entry signals here. Let's take a look at our exits. So I have an entry, but then I have a short exit, right, or a short output to exit the long. I have another long entry. There's our exit. Let's see. So none of those situations apply. All right, let's take a look at these. So we have a short entry, but then we have an exit. So this will exit the short entry. This long here will exit that short. Oh. I think the only way that we could get an entry signal before an exit signal occurs is if we have an entry signal and then 2 bars later we have another entry signal. So I think I have to find 2 entry signals that are within 3 bars of each other. Yeah, just because of the way the rules are all set up. Ah, here we go. All right, so maybe I found something here. All right, short entry, long entry. All right, let's take a look at the exits here. And all right, bingo, there we go. All right, so technically this qualifies. You know, I gotta say this doesn't really make a lot of sense, but technically this qualifies, right? So we're looking at the exits. Yeah, so this long output is the exit signal. Remember, we're looking at the exits, and then this is our entry. So we don't actually want the entry to show up here. We actually want to block this entry because an exit didn't happen before the entry. Right? The exit signal happened on the entry here. So let's take a look at the entry signals again. Yeah, so we actually want to block this long entry signal because there was no exit, right? We didn't have an exit on this bar. So we want to block this entry signal. Okay, so this may not make sense from a trading standpoint, but technically it's something that we can work with just to kind of show you how to build the logic here. And let me see if there's any other examples. Ah, here we go. All right, let's take a look at these. So those are the entry signals. And let's see if there's some exit signals in between. Yeah, so there is, we do have an exit. Let me grab this guy. Yeah, we do have an exit there. And we have an exit there, right? So there's our short output to exit these long trades. But there's no exit between these two entries here. So we'll block this second entry. And just so you know, technically Raven would not take this second entry. Raven would take the first entry, and I can see by price here, I can tell by looking at price that we would still be in this long trade taken here. So we'd have a long position still open. So this second entry would actually just be ignored by Raven, because Raven is only going to enter you in a long trade once until it's flat. Right? So Raven's not going to take multiple long entries, even if it's given multiple long signals. It's going to only enter you in once. And then when Raven goes flat, in other words, so if you're in this long trade, and once your profit or your stop loss gets hit, then Raven would take a second long trade, right? Once Raven went flat, it would take a second long trade. All right, yeah, so there's another spot we can work with. So let's circle this so I can find it later. And I'm going to find this other spot. Okay, so here's the other spot there that we're working with. All right, so I'm going to work on this part on the chart here. So, all right, so just to recap, we're building in condition number 3 as a restriction to our entry signals, right? So rule number 3 is going to restrict the entry signals here. So our goal is to remove this signal, right? Our goal is to block that second entry based on rule number 3 here. So what I'm going to do, since I have my exit logic, all built and everything, there's no way in BloodHound version 1 to copy this stuff. So we will have a way to copy things in BloodHound version 2. But what I need to do is I need to get all this logic, and I need to get it into my entry logic, so I can use it to basically block these entry signals. So what I can do, I'm going to take this, I can make a copy of it, right? So I'll make a copy of it, and I'll just call it entry with yeah, so I guess our entry with an exit requirement. Now the reason why I copied my exit logic was, if we look at our entry logic, this is very simple. So I can just rebuild this very quickly into this new entry logic here. So all I need to do is go grab my solver here, my threshold solver for the anaADX by threshold, and let's rename this. So instead of calling this just a by only, let's rename it to entries. So this is really kind of providing our entry signals. All right, and let's put that signal blocker back in here. So I'm going to set the signal blocker up the same way as it was before in the other logic template. So all right, so now what I need to do is I need to take these exit signals and use them to reset the signal blocker. So to make this easy, I'm just going to do a little bit of experimenting here. I don't claim to know how to build something right off the top of my head. Sometimes I do a lot of experimenting to find something that works. And that's the beauty of BloodHound, is you can quickly experiment to get something to work. If you don't know, how to, if you don't know what settings to use, you can experiment very quickly to get things to work. So I'm going to take my exit signals and I'm going to plug it into the reset, because I know that I'll be using these exit signals to reset the signal blocker. All right, so now the next step is to determine, basically kind of experiment around and figure out which resets I want to use here. Let's see, I think I probably want to use block opposite signals. Yeah, I would. And the reason why is because, entry condition number 3 doesn't say anything about an opposite entry signal being allowed to go through prior to an exit signal. So I want to block, opposite signals. So what that means is, right, so if we have, we have these long entry signals here, right? So if our recent, so let's actually back the chart up, right? So let's just take, so our last trade, let's take a look at the last trade on this chart. So the last trade is a long trade. So the opposite, and let's pull this back up, right? So an opposite signal would be a short signal. So if the last signal was a long, the opposite would be a short, right? So if I step forward, boom, there's a short which is opposite that long. So if I set this to true, and let's see, I also need to turn off this input no signal because that's going to be resetting my signal blocker too often. So look at this. Actually, our long signals disappeared now too. Oh, no. Okay, there we go. So we got this long signal. And then the others were blocked. Let's see. All right. So here's where things are going to get kind of tricky. So in order for me to see, in order for me to see my exit signals, to know when the signal blocker is getting reset, I actually need to see the exit signals on my chart, right? That's going to help me figure out, if I have the signal blocker set up correctly. So what I'm going to do, let's see, what would be the best way to do this? Okay, so I'm going to create a temporary BloodHound file to do this. So this is going to be the safest way to do this. So I'm going to hit save this, and then I'm going to go and hit save as, and I'll just use this file, and I'll call this exit only, or actually I'll just call this I'll just call it temporary, because I'm just going to use this temporarily just for a visual aid. So I'll click save. Alright, so let me load a second instance of BloodHound on here. And I'm going to load up that temporary file. And actually, before I do that, let me close this file. I'm going to close this file out. Alright, so put in a second instance of BloodHound, and I'm going to load up that temporary file. And what I'm going to do, this temporary file, I don't want these entry signals. I don't really need them, so I'm just going to delete that logic template. And I don't need this entry either, so I'm going to delete that logic template. All I really need to see on my chart are these exit signals. Alright, so I have the temporary file loaded in here, and if I want, I can use different colors to kind of help me out. So let's see. I'll change green to blue, change this red to like a purplish. Yeah. All right. So my exit, so now I can see on the chart, I can see my exit signals here. So this will give me a visual aid when I'm working with the signal blocker. And so if I stretch the chart out, right, we can see I've got 2 BloodHound buttons on here now. So, all right, so this first BloodHound button, I'm actually going to load up. I'm going to load up the main, the permanent file that we're actually working with. Right, so I'm going to load up this file, and close this. Right, I'm closing it because you can see on the chart I had to press F5 to load up all the data for that new file that I just loaded. Alright, so I got 2 BloodHounds on here. One's got that temporary file loaded into it, and it's showing me the exits. Right, so this is the input that's going into the signal blocker. Alright, so now I can see the exit signals that are, I can see the exit signals that are going into the reset of my signal blocker. And that's the blue and purple down here now. Alright, so I can see my entry signal here, and I can see I do have a short, or I do have a long exit signal, right? So remember the purple plots are what exit my long trade. So whenever I get a purple plot, what I want to be able to see is another entry signal in any direction. Right, and so that's all based off of rule number 3. Is I get an entry signal, and then I have to wait for an exit. So if I'm in a long entry, I have to wait for a purple here. So the purple would exit my long entry. So I have to wait for a purple, and then I can get another entry signal. And I do know, if I take a look at just the raw entries, yeah, I should be getting some more entries here. All right, so I have a purple exit here that's going to exit my long trade, and then this next long trade signal should show up again. So that's what I'm trying to get working here. So what I need to find is let's see, reset opposite signal. Yeah, let's turn that on. And there we go. So the reset opposite signal, right? So reset, the word reset, so you can see all of these names here start with input, input, reset, reset, input, input. So that, what that applies to is the input and the reset in connectors here. Right? You can see the signal blocker has an input connector and a reset connector. So the labels here refer to which connector. So I'm using the reset connector right here. So we can see I have my exit signals connected to the reset. And then I'm using an opposite signal to reset the signal blocker, right? So if you look at the chart, right, I have a long signal going into the input, and then when this purple comes in, so the purple, remember, is opposite of the longs. The purple is a short, excuse me. The purple is a short, so this short is opposite that long. So that's where we're using opposite signal at the reset to reset our signal blocker. And so there we go. So we have this long entry signal got through, and then we had to wait, right? We had to wait until this bar here basically reset the signal blocker so that the next entry signal could show up. And here's the next entry signal right here. It showed up, and then remember we have an exit signal here that reset the signal blocker, which allowed the next entry to come in. And then once again we had another exit signal that allowed the next reset to come in. And we can see that there's no exit signal in here on these bars. So this entry signal as well got blocked as well. All right, so that is it. Yeah, that is our logic. It's all done. So it looks really complex, but to summarize it, we're using, to summarize it, right? Rule number 3 says that we have to, says that after one of these entry signals, we must have an exit signal before another entry signal can occur. So what we did is we took our entry signals, we're blocking them with the signal blocker, and then we're using our exit, right? We're using our exit signals to reset the signal blocker, which then allows the next or the following entry signal to show up, to go through, to pass through. Okay, let's see what else we have here on the list. All right, so we built all the entry signals. We have built all the exit signals. All right, so the next part of this is some money management. All right, so we have some money management requirements. So let's see. All right, so number 1 is limit a specific number of trades that that could occur during a given time frame. So that type of requirement, that would, let's see. I don't think an indicator could do that. Yeah, so an indicator couldn't actually be built to do this. So yeah, condition 1 essentially would require a custom strategy to be written. Yeah, so it's going to require a custom strategy, and so the custom strategy could capture the time of the entry signal, and then once the time of the entry signal is known, then you can write custom code that says, don't take any more trades until a given time frame has passed. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I can't think of a way for an indicator to do that. Yeah, so not even a custom indicator could do that. And the reason why is because a custom indicator that could track the time wouldn't know when these entry signals occur. Yeah, that's the problem. So, all right, so we'll just say rule number 1, or money management rule number 1 requires a custom strategy to be written for BloodHound. And we do have example codes on our website if you do want to write your own custom strategy using BloodHound signals and BloodHound exits. So that is possible. I'll show you afterwards where you can get that custom code. Let's see. All right, so the next money management rule number 2 is we want to turn off automatic trading after, let's see, after 2 conditions here, after I guess any one of these conditions. So a specific number of losses in a row. All right, so once again, a specific number of losses in a row, that has to be done in a custom strategy. All right, so only a strategy knows when there's a loss and when there's a winner. So indicators don't have access to the profit and loss data. Only a strategy does. So you have to write a custom strategy that can access what the P&L is of the trades, and then you could determine if you had 3 losing trades in a row, or however many losing trades in a row you wanted to set. That would require a special or a custom strategy. And once again, a specified total number of losers during a period of time. So once again, that would have to be custom coded, into a custom strategy. So, okay, pretty much money management rules. Typically, they're all going to have to. The only way they have to be implemented into a custom strategy. So, at least remember, Raven is very simple and very basic, and it was free with BloodHound. So we will have an advanced auto trader that will have some of this stuff in here. I'm not sure it's going to have all of these money management rules, but it will have some of this stuff in here. Let's see. So let me show you where you can get an example code to write your own custom strategy. So if we go, let's see, just go to support, and let's go to learn BloodHound. We'll just click on that. All right. So that brings up this side menu here of all the documentation. So if I scroll down, we see Raven down here. So and then down here we can see custom BloodHound strategies. So there's 2 examples down here, right? So under here there's 2 examples. If I click on custom BloodHound strategy, it just kind of gives an overview of how things work, how you can get the BloodHound signals into your strategy. Right? So what you're doing is BloodHound is an indicator. So you're calling the indicator BloodHound into your strategy. So let me keep going down here, and where's that menu go? Here's the menu. So here's these 2 pages are the actual example code. So I'll just show you example strategy 1. Okay, and so if you want to see it, you'll have to click the agree button there, and then you can see the example code here. And there's a little description of what this one does. And down at the bottom, you can download the file. So there's 2 different files that you can download. You can download a zip file, and you can download just the raw CS file. So one thing to note, read everything carefully. So you must have developer extensions checked when you ran the Shark Indicators installer. So you might have to reinstall BloodHound on top of itself and have the developer extensions checked when you run the installer. So, all right. So that concludes this workshop. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.